Well, howdy do, buckaroos. Was that words? Be honest. So if you're a fan of video games, you're well aware of the next-gen consoles that were just announced within the past month. And if you're not a fan of video games, stick around anyways, because what Xbox is doing right now just might very well change the landscape of entertainment as we know it. So, about 2 weeks ago, Microsoft officially announced their release date and prices for their Series X and Series S consoles. And about a week after that, Sony did the same with their PlayStation 5 disc and digital editions. Meanwhile, my wallet is looking around like, now that all the tech details are out and the pre-orders are available, it's clear that Microsoft and Sony are going with two totally different approaches here. The PlayStation model appears to be sticking with the traditional route of a trendy design and exclusive games, usually targeted those 18 and up. The Xbox model, however, is strongly learning from their past mistakes and expanding their focus more than ever. But before we can get into all of that, let's add some context and get into the console wars up to this point. Obviously, it's pretty much been the big three ever since the start of the century. Throughout the 2000s, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo consoles all tended to compete with one another using the same offline, story-driven games. However, as the years went on and the internet became more prominent, services such as PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live came into play, with Nintendo's version launching years later. And I'm not forgetting about PC gaming either, I'm just focused on the big three because their primary focus and function is gaming.
What?
I said come down here and see what happens if you try and hit me.
Jumping to the 2010s, graphics in games had improved immensely, along with the speed of the internet. Consoles already had the ability to play disc media, but they became more of an entertainment system overall as streaming services became more and more popular. Much like how I explained in my HBO Max video, there's an ongoing issue of multi-billion-dollar corporations spreading their dominance over tech and entertainment industries. For example, Google apparently wants to be a gaming company now, thanks to the gaming streaming service. Speaking of which, Apple is apparently blocking both Stadia and xCloud services from being on their devices, but they haven't expressed an interest in AAA gaming either, so, I mean, Apple, come on.
Figure out what you do!
Unfortunately, Facebook is also attempting to dominate VR gaming through their acquisition and then bastardization of Oculus. That stated, it seems that the console wars have shifted their focus from hardware over to software. And there's tons of other services and gaming consoles, but the ones I mentioned are the ones prevalent to the main subject of this video. So, a few years ago, back in 2017, Xbox found themselves in a bit of a tough spot. PlayStation was blowing Xbox out of the water when it came to major exclusive titles, and they had already been doing decently well with their own gaming subscription service, PlayStation Now. Xbox was well aware of their struggles since they were barely able to keep up with PlayStation in terms of sales, plus Nintendo was about to reinvent themselves with the release of the Switch. However, after taking notes from their competitors, Silicon Valley, and several streaming services, Xbox developed their own paid subscription service called Xbox Game Pass. For the first 2 years of its life, Game Pass was still finding its footing, but it showed promise upon its launch in June of 2017. Instead of having to buy or rent a new game, Xbox now offered over 100 games to play however long you wanted for just $10 a month. But for consumers, the appeal wasn't quite there yet for the service that Forbes called the Netflix for video games. Most likely because people that owned an Xbox were probably already paying for Xbox Live Gold, another paid subscription that gave you free games and online gaming access. However, that all changed in 2019 with the announcement and launch of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, a service that combined the two services into one package. They even offered to upgrade existing Xbox Live Gold memberships to Ultimate for only $1 at launch. So you potentially could pay a fraction of the total price by just renewing your Gold membership and then paying $1 to make that Ultimate. Super smart move on their part, considering that both Xbox and the customer got to keep all that money. And that brings us to now, September 2020. Honestly, a pivotal time for Xbox. PC crossplay and mobile game streaming are now available to paying subscribers, as long as you've got a reliable internet connection and a controller. I've actually tried out xCloud since I'm on Android, and so far, it's not too bad. Not too shabby. The graphics can drop significantly depending on your internet service, and there is kind of a delay between controller and game, but That's kind of expected for something still in beta. With this in mind, it seems that Xbox doesn't care how you play, just as long as you do. Also, this is not an ad. They are not coming to a guy with 92 subscribers. Are you serious? Like, do you think they'd... That'd be cool though. Technically, you no longer need an Xbox console to play Xbox games, which is just wild, but that leads me to the next section. So what are the appeals of the current/upcoming generation of consoles? Nintendo is doing their own thing like they always have, this time focusing on portability along with the community aspect of their family-friendly gaming. Sony, in my opinion, has been the Apple equivalent of the video game world, focusing on quality and aesthetic over customizability and an open ecosystem. On the flip side of that, Xbox could be compared to Android in the sense of promoting crossplay between console, PC, and mobile. With all of that, plus the fact that you can play Blu-rays, watch any streaming service that you want, or just surf the internet, Xbox has kind of become the one-stop shop for everyone. Now, that isn't to say that Microsoft is stepping away from gaming, quite the opposite actually. Just this month, they announced that EA Play and all of its titles would be included within Game Pass Ultimate soon. As if that's not a big enough deal already, Microsoft announced just yesterday that they're buying ZeniMax Media Incorporated for $7.5 billion. For those unaware, ZeniMax Media is the company behind Bethesda Softworks, the studio that's brought us Fallout, Doom, and... This acquisition is a much bigger deal than just a handful of games. It's quite possible upon the release of a new Bethesda game, people on Team PlayStation will have to pay upwards of $60. Meanwhile, people on Team Xbox, not gonna have to pay a thing. The games, the accessibility, the affordability, all of that wrapped up into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, that could really be the deciding factor for millions of players. Well, howdy do, buckaroos. Why am I adding a weird, lisp? Well, howdy do, buckaroos. How's it going, guys? When I was talking about this topic with my boys, we all agreed that this was one of the smartest business moves Xbox has ever made. What Microsoft is doing right now is making Xbox more of a necessity rather than a hobby. Making it as available as they are, along with pricing the Series S at just $300, it's gonna be a tough deal to pass up, especially if your friends already lean towards Xbox. To quote my pal Justin, as of right now, it's more of a luxury than anything to be a gamer, but that's about to change in the coming months. For all the parents thinking of getting their teen a console this holiday season, they're more than likely to go with the most cost-effective option. And the same goes for college students or just your standard gamer on a budget. If you're okay passing up on a few other exclusives, why wouldn't you? All said, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate could be the saving grace for Microsoft's next generation of consoles. By listening to fans, offering the most out of every other game company and at a fair price, Xbox might just land on top once again, simply by default. Hey, thank you for staying till the end of this video. I really appreciate it, and if you want to share with a friend, I'm not gonna say no. I'm only a few subscribers away from the 100 mark, so any and all support is greatly appreciated. Those are my socials. Big thanks to my patrons as always, but as always guys, I've been Andy, you have been Dandy, and thank you for watching.